Good evening, Professor David. Good evening, Professor Saurabh, Daljit, Eddie, Virginia. Good evening, and good evening, all the participants.
Good
It's
evening,
good
everyone.
afternoon from London, colleagues.
Yeah.
Good evening to you.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Eddie, we can start.
Great. So welcome everyone to our webinar, Is Traditional Assessment Dead? Rethinking Learning Evaluation in the Age of AI. My name is Eddie Malecki. I'm co-founder of Assessify, and I'm really thrilled to be moderating today's discussion. So let me start by just saying, for decades, traditional assessments really have been the cornerstone of evaluating student learning. However, they have also, especially in recent years, been criticized for being a measure of pure memorization over deeper cognitive skills like critical thinking, creativity, and problem solving. So now with the rise of Gen AI tools like ChatGPT and Google Gemini and Microsoft Copilot, these limitations are becoming more apparent. And what we're finding is students are also now using AI to generate assignments and responses, which is also raising critical questions about the relevance and effectiveness of traditional assessments in accurately measuring learning and skills. So there is a silver lining with this whole AI thing, right? Because it doesn't just challenge traditional methods, it also offers opportunities to transform them. So today, we really want to explore how AI is reshaping assessments into active learning experiences that foster growth, adaptability, and real-world problem solving. So we're going to examine whether traditional assessments can evolve, or if it's time to reimagine learning evaluation entirely. Let's begin by just real quick introducing our distinguished panelists who's going to help navigate these discussions. So first up, we have Professor David Tan, who is a vice provost and executive dean of the school at University of East London. Welcome, David.
Hello, everyone. Yeah.
Next, we have Dr. Sarub Maheta, Chief Academic Officer and Professor at Vidyalankar Institute of Technology, and also the founder of Sun Wireless Technologies.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome. Next, we have Virginia Sharma, who has a wealth of K through 12 experience. She's currently the Director of Teaching and Assessment at Dubai International Private Schools. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you, Eddie.
We have Daljit Saran, who is an industry practitioner, management consultant, and leader in strategy and corporate development. Welcome, Daljit. We have Bhupesh Daharia, CEO of Aegis School of Data Sciences and founder of Assessify. Welcome.
Thank you, Eddie. I'm very much excited for this panel.
Likewise. So I also want to just mention to the panelists that, while I have a ton of questions, I'm really looking at this in a few different parts. I really want to unpack what assessments are, why we need them. I want to look at the challenges with the current landscape of assessments, and then how AI is revolutionizing that. So while I have a ton of questions, I do, rather than this being a question answer kind of dynamic, I'm looking to facilitate a discussion. So if anyone has anything to add to another panelist's response, then feel free to chime in. I don't have a timer for answers. If something starts, we want to move on, then I will chime in. But I want this to be a fun discussion. So I'm going to start off with a really sort of broad but thought-provoking question. And I'm gonna start off with Virginia. Virginia, I'm curious, what would education look like without assessments? Would the absence of structured evaluation hinder or enhance learning?
Well, I think it depends on what we're talking about for structured. I mean, assessment is important because if we're not assessing the knowledge of our students, then we don't know where to go. We don't know, they don't know where to go, right? So we have to be able to have some way to be able to assess their knowledge and skills. And we also don't know if we're being effective as educators. So, but in terms of the more traditional forms of assessment, we have to remember that only gives us like a snapshot, right? That's really what it is. It's not a snapshot. It's just a snapshot of what the student knows. So it doesn't go in deep into their knowledge where they're able to contextualize their understanding and their learning and show us how that would be applied in real life. So, I think that this move towards, this critical thinking and more non-traditional methods of assessment is a big movement right now. And I think it's an important one considering how our students are currently thinking and what we're seeing moving forward with technology, with AI. And even if you look at the studies that have been done, the 2023 World Economics Forum, the report that was done from them about what the skills are that the employers are going to be looking for in the future. We need to prepare. That's our job, is to prepare our students for life, not just for school. So.
Thank you, Virginia. Dr. Mehta,
Yeah.
in the context of modern education, what would you say the primary purpose of assessment's been in education, but also like how has the purpose shifted over the years? When we're looking at sort of the evolution of
Yeah,
assessments.
so when we are discussing about like assessment, first we need to understand what are the basic functions of assessment, right? So what I feel is that the assessments are really necessary for getting a feedback, grading, selecting students, influencing students, giving satisfaction of their coursework, completing the learning process, because without assessment can't actually complete the learning processes, then being accountable to all our stakeholders when we are taking assessment. So I think over the period of time this functionality remains the same. Now what has changed is the way that we conducting the assessment. So I think it is good when we are looking at particular like assessment. So I check the assessment basically on 5 parameters. One, its reliability, validity, its educational effect, acceptance by all the stakeholders, and obviously the cost. So these things we need to measure when we are changing our methodology. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Tan, Professor Tan, what role do assessments play in shaping teaching strategies and learning experiences? I think you're on mute, Professor Tan.
So David, just click on the microphone, double click, and it will unmute yourself. There's a microphone icon on the left bottom. It seems like you're using Team, not Zoom.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you
Okay.
are.
Yeah.
So sorry about that. I didn't find
Yeah.
even the button. We normally use Team.
Yeah.
Is that okay now? Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
I agree with what have been said by the two colleagues. Obviously, assessment is very important. I would like to add to basically to certify, particularly in a professional kind of setting, if you train a doctor, train an engineer, train the vocational basis, you need to ensure they have reached a certain level of competency and quality and skills. And but also assessment is a way of learning. I say that by making mistakes, by not fulfilling the purpose, answer things right, then that is a learning process. So assessment will always have an important role to play, whatever happens, with or without AI.
Thank you. Bhupesh, in exploring the evolution a little more and of assessments, I'm curious, how has the purpose of assessments evolved with the shift towards more competency-based and personalized learning approaches in your experience?
So, assessment traditionally has been used to pass or fail or to award degrees or give feedback, right? That has been a traditional view, but now assessment has evolved as a very effective tool for learning, right? And that's where the movement is coming. When you ask any question to a student or any human being, so you just ask a question, it triggered neurons in my brain, millions of neurons, right? And it tries to formulate a neural pathway. Loosely, we can really say it tries to form a circuit, and it tries to extract information from short-term memory and long-term memory. And it also access the information from my knowledge base experience. And if it is just the information retrieval, it retrieves and presents it, right, in a beautiful word. If it is a complex problem, then it really assimilates the knowledge and tries to give you the solution, right? And that's how our biological neuron works, and perhaps digital neurons are also following the similar path. But what happens that if you ask only say questions which is limited to information retrieval, which is has been criticized like a rote learning, like who was the father of Akbar, then it will just reinforce your ability to retrieve the information, but it will not form your higher cognitive capability, right? And that's the reason you need to really ask assessments or questions which actually triggers deeper level of knowledge assimilation, right? And so let's example, if you ask question, what would have happened if Ashok would have been the father of Akbar, right? Then it is not only the knowledge which you need to really access, that who was Akbar and who was Ashok, but at the same time, you also need to really understand what is the current scenario and what will be the situation today, right? If this happens. Right? So assessment is an integral part, not only in the formal education, which is a subset of learning, but in learning. So without learning, yes, without assessment, learning can happen or education can happen, but it will be extremely difficult that you will be able to develop higher cognitive capability, right? Am I able to answer your question, Eddie?
Yes, that was great. Thank you. And Virginia, I want to ask you back to you with looking at balancing the importance of ongoing and final assessments in education. Why is that important?
Well, the ongoing, like if you talk about our formative assessments, that's going to be where we're looking at that, again, those students making those goals so that we're achieving a learning target, right? So we can see how our students are progressing. We can adjust our instruction in order to close gaps before we get to that summative point with the students. So it's important that we're giving them that feedback, that we're giving them constructive feedback that they can act on so that they are able to increase their learning, because just like my colleague said, assessment is learning. So we need to be using those assessments in our formative practice in order to encourage learning of the students with the constructive feedback and with them being able to even assess themselves, because part of the self-determination theory is mastery. If we don't have a way to gauge that mastery against, if we don't have something to gauge that against, then we don't know that we've achieved that. So as we're encouraging the students to move along, we have to use that formative assessment process to move them along to the summative and say, where are we at here? Where's my gaps? And again, not only for informing the student, but also the teacher and the institution.
Thank you. That's great. Piggybacking on Virginia's response, Dr. Maheta, how can assessments provide meaningful feedback for both the learners and the educators to enhance the teaching learning process?
I mean, when you are taking assessment, so it gives you idea as a teacher that where I need to adjust my lesson plan, how I need to deliver my content, and mainly important, where are the gaps, that what kind of thing the students are not able to understand, and where I need to focus more. So many a times it happens that as earlier Bhupesh said, that we are setting our question more towards like lower cognitive domain, and ultimately we see that all students are performing well, but towards the higher, they are not. So maybe I need to adjust my lesson plan so that students, they get more practice towards the higher cognitive level and they work towards it. So this is very important. And another part for the student is that assessment is not just only about like getting a feedback, but it is also feed up that what they need to learn further and how they can actually progress their learning and take this assessment as a learning opportunity. So it's a both way. So I think assessment works for the student as well as for the teacher.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Daljeet, I want your perspective on what role does assessment play in bridging the gap between the academic learning, which is what we're discussing, and then the real world application.
Thanks, Eddie, for bringing us all together. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes.
So very similar to academic settings, what we are seeing in the corporate world is there is a massive need for upskilling, reskilling, and making people more efficient and effective at the same time, right? So let me start with the various components of what other speakers spoke about. Within the corporate environments, with the introduction of ChatGPT and models that look like ChatGPT, there is a lot of need to train employees into the new technologies and upskill in how to leverage the tools better, right? So AI platforms like Assessify, whether it is LinkedIn Learning, right? They're being used first to recommend people how to self-educate and learn the basic concepts first, because in order first you have to learn in order to be able to deploy and use it for skills, for job roles, for career goals. So that's first part of it, right? So once you learn, now you want to assess and then track whether you have met the objectives, right? So that's the first part of it. A lot of corporate places are beginning to leverage learning systems that can recommend, self-recommend, as well as just manage the learning catalog over a period of time, right? So that's for employee training and upskilling. That's number one. The second part is essentially being able to provide feedback. So performance feedback, development feedback. So think about, right, like you want to be able to provide coaching and training on the job, real time, in order to understand where they're doing well and not doing well, right? So in order to provide insights and how to improve the productivity, skill adoption, things like that. So that's from an employee perspective. Now you can put all of this data from a manager perspective to say how well is a department doing, how well is the team doing, right? So you have feedback and perspective on how well the team is doing, and as a result, you are now beginning to link performance with promotion, with raises and other things in the longer run, right? Like it's not there today. Not, please don't get me wrong that everything is there today. Very similar to what's happening in academic institutions, right? It's an evolution. People are learning, people are taking input and incorporating into it, right? With the longer term ambition that you have learning pathways, which is what Professor Sharma was talking about, around learning pathways, how to use inputs into making sure that the organizations are managing talent better and are doing planning better, right? So that's the second part of it. The third part of it, which is I think is very important, is as these tools are becoming very, very prevalent, the ability to communicate, right? So soft skills, hard skills, how do you, because most of the tools, the interface on all of this is plain English spoken language, right? It's not coding, it's plain English spoken language, which means essentially you being able to articulate what the need is so that the tool is able to produce the answer you're looking to do, right? So a lot of feedback in terms of communication, conflict resolution, like that becomes important. And the last bit is around, if you think about, right, like if you're a manager or a leader, you are thinking about what's coming tomorrow, what's coming in 25, what's coming in 2026. So as a result, now you're thinking about talent development, pipeline development, right? So these are concepts that are beginning to be rolled out. Some organizations are much further along than others, but that's where the world is moving towards, right? So taking what's available today, retraining your people, and then over a period of time. The last bit is essentially now I come to the very start of the talent cycle, which is onboarding, knowledge management, query retrieval, and like thinking about, right? So which is essentially you are making an employee more productive. So in United States where I live, most of the help desk has become automated, right? Like, so you call something and like the first thing you get is, right, when you dial in the help desk number, it says, can I send you a text message? Which means essentially just redirecting you to a chatbot of some sort to resolve your self query. And that's where the last bit of rollout is happening, which is essentially you should be able to find internal resources, documents, experts on your own to resolve your query versus logging a ticket versus calling. So this is essentially what's happening in the corporate world. All of this is essentially around training, development, how to make people better, effective, and efficient at the same time.
Great. Thank you, Daljeet. I want to pivot the discussion slightly to address the challenges with traditional assessments and then kind of bring in AI. But first, just kind of more broad, Professor Tan, what are the biggest gaps that you see in the way traditional assessments measure learning outcomes? If you could unmute again.
I'm terrible. I'm using Teams. But
It's okay.
I
hear you.
Well, whilst the traditional assessment is very important, but with the AI now, I think we have a brand new, very important opportunity because there are many limitations of what a traditional assessment can achieve. I mean, to start with, traditional assessment is kind of surface learning. It's as colleagues already kind of alluded to, it's often memory focused exams to retrieve knowledge. And so I can say, all the knowledge, existing knowledge is like a library. So the assessment is trying to retrieve that knowledge that ensure that the learner have already gained that knowledge. But that has a limit because, it's the lack of high order, as you call, critical thinking. And the other fatal point, I would say, is the feedback. Colleagues talk about feedback, assessment feedback. That is such an important process in anyone's learning, is feedback. Many times, for example, in many elite institutions or very small private schools, if one tutor can only have 6 or 7 or even smaller number of students, the feedback quality would be very good, and because you have the time to spend. But in reality, in the general education, it's not possible. Whether from primary school or to the secondary school, to the universities, that's not possible. So that is the traditional kind of assessment. I would say shortcomings, where probably we can catch on later on. AI would be able to come in to do that, and also the skills of assessment, the teachers, academics or teachers, it depends on how that person's professional development is. And they have to keep learning, get the new knowledge, and to ensure consistency. And that sometimes if you are dealing with a huge class in whatever level, then that human error is quite prone, could be easy to make. And so there are many limitations, and even stress and anxiety for the staff. And if some of staff, if they have to mark so many within a limited amount of time, and that will be a shortcoming. And also, colleagues talking about the skills gap between academia and the industry, what required. The fact that there are so many graduates in many countries, UK included, US included, but the sector, the industry still say they don't have enough people. And there are still many graduates unemployed. So that shows, the traditional assessment way is probably not fully prone to errors. And I think, although I must say to be fair, that when we say traditional assessment, that is a subjective way as well. And in the sector, particularly, I guess, in the university sector, HE sector, they have been continuing evolving evolution, how to change that, how to actually introduce skill-based, project-based, learning and everything, group project and so on. So that's where I think, AI, now that we're in the AI stage, we could probably, really utilize that AI's power to enhance the traditional assessment. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Bhupesh, I'd love to hear your thoughts on like the biggest challenges that you're facing at Aegis School of Data Sciences when you consider assessments today, in particularly with now the rise of AI tools like ChatGPT and Copilot, not just for your students, but also the faculty.
So, very good point, Eddie, you have highlighted, and that actually let me build on what Professor David has said. So, we run an institution called Aegis School of Data Science, and now we train students on Python, AI, and all this stuff. And now ChatGPT can write the basic code, right? So just teaching them the basic syntax and code and basic information will not really help. So just information retrieval is of no value. Now today employer want students those who can really solve complex problems. Like for example, to detect cancer out of the CT scans, right? Or develop facial recognition system which can really stop any kind of cheating or security threat. So you need to develop a student with higher cognitive capability, and at the same time, they also have the knowledge, which of course syntax, right? Also have a deeper understanding about statistics, calculus, and other area, right? So there are two areas. So you have to really develop your students and cognitive capability. At the same time, you have to develop your faculty members, because now faculties can't keep on asking the assessment which will develop the lower cognitive capability, right? And designing the assignments which will develop your higher cognitive capability or assess higher cognitive capabilities is extremely difficult. It's not so easy, right? One. Second part, which Professor did, that once you really give the assignment, you also need to evaluate and give the feedback. So imagine, like example, I'm teaching deep learning. It is not possible for me to give, say, 20 assignments to the student in a class of 50 and then give the feedback immediately. It's not possible. It will take typically a week's time with the help of multiple TAs. Now, a lot of institutions in India and other than IITs, none of the institutions, they provide the TAs. And Professor Saurav will go with this fact, right? So now, if I give a feedback after a week, and moreover, I am overburdened, my student doesn't learn. So everything will learn with the immediate feedback. You ask me the question, I immediately responded, right? So that reinforces your learning, right? That's what it happens. So the purpose of assessment actually fails, which is essentially learning. It is not pass or fail, right? Because we are moving away from that paradigm, right? So I faced with those two challenges. One is to develop faculty members so that they actually make concepts much easier rather than just manually evaluating the assignments, right? And that's where the AI is really helping. And Assessify is helping. So now Assessify is able to really create complex assignments, which will really check their higher cognitive capability, critical thinking. At the same time, Assessify is able to evaluate. And not only I am an administrator, but I am also a teacher. So I am also using the same thing. So The time which I save, I use that time to design and get the project from the industry, design better assignments, right? Rather than giving them the feedback. So this is one part, right? Other part, AI also helping faculty members to really learn, make lectures interesting because every week new research paper is coming, right? And teaching those concepts is extremely difficult. So you need to really make them easy, digestible format, and that's where the faculty need to spend a lot of time.
Excellent. Thank you, Bhupesh. Virginia, I'd love to get your perspective as from the K through 12 perspective of like what kind of challenges are you facing with assessments today, particularly with or how is ChatGPT, Copilot, and these kind of tools either challenging or influencing the assessment space in that K through 12 sector?
Yes. So I think I'm going to go off of some of what my other colleagues said. First of all, I think we have to remember that when we're talking about traditional versus more, authentic type of assessment, who goes to work and they're given a multiple choice test? So we need to be giving our students these real world types of scenarios for them to apply their knowledge to, and we can use AI and learning of AI for both our students and our teachers in order to apply that knowledge. We can use it for critical thinking. We've talked about how are we going to put this, what are our policies going to be? And this is a big, I think, struggle that a lot of K-12 schools are having. Do we outright ban it? Or do we find out how we're going to ethically teach the students how to use it? And I personally feel like we need to be ethically teaching the students how to use it and talk about its limitations and its benefits, and even when we're talking about the feedback and, teacher well-being, that immediate feedback to the students is so great. It's so important that we're able to give that to students because it opens up so many possibilities, right? Imagine a scenario where you have a classroom where the students are getting this immediate feedback and then they're sharing that feedback with their peers. So they're able to then analyze their own learning and they're able to analyze that collaboratively. Now we're talking about more of a real world scenario that we're going to be seeing in the workplace where we're talking about teamwork and collaboration and those analytical skills using the feedback that we're getting from the AI. So I mean, to me, I just see so many possibilities with it. And yes, there are struggles with the students cheating. We have seen that at times, quote unquote cheating, but it's interesting because the more you work with AI, the more you can tell those AI type of responses, the more that you can see some of the limitations of AI. And we need to show that to the students. We need to be doing that with the students. We need to be learning alongside them. We need to be exploring with them and, discovering all of this together because that's how we work in the real world anyway.
Thank you, Virginia. Dr. Mehta, I'd love to get your perspective on this as well, particularly, how you see AI transforming the role of educators in designing and conducting assessments.
Yeah, I mean, so with the new AI technology, it is very helpful. The first thing that we can do is more customization. So based on the student's ability, based on like a student's learning path, we can design specific assignments and evaluation test for them, and that's very useful. Second, it's more like a transparent, and then students they can track their path. So this is the new thing that it's coming up, and then students are way ahead of us compared to like the teachers. But this is I see it's kind of like a boom. But at the same time, I also a bit worried about the ethical part and then the critical thinking. I mean, AI could not be the solution for everything. There need to be like proper guided use of that. then it makes a really useful tool for the students.
That's great. Yeah, almost like we would need some kind of co-pilot
Correct.
function for this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Daljeet, where have you seen AI being used successfully in the workplace, especially for like training and reskilling?
Yeah, so so I work in financial services mostly with clients, right? So a lot of where AI retraining, usability is happening is right. Like there were themes that were talked about, and I want to just build on those themes, right? So there's beginning to people incorporate AI, which means essentially they're leveraging the AI, but they don't have full understanding of what the capabilities are, right? So the first part is essentially people are beginning to rely on it, but they don't understand how to utilize it fully. So where people now in tools, so where reskilling is happening or where credit decisioning is happening. So an example is like when you look at uh, your portfolio, your investments and other things, right? So what ends up happening is in the world, a lot of events are happening real time, and that is getting incorporated into your stock prices and other things. For a practitioner on a day-to-day basis, what that means is to be able to take all of that information, all the noise that is coming in, be able to incorporate it into your models, and then be able to generate an answer that the model can understand. So where I have seen it in banks, they're beginning to take AI and run it in a co-pilot mode, where essentially you are able to do the research, do the attribution of the source information, and then from there on, you're able to incorporate it into the models. That's one. Two is essentially around where people have to cite resources, right? So an example I think that I tend to give example of that you can ask an AI that if I want to launch a new product, it will give you a project plan or a launch plan very quickly, but it will not be able to tell you who are the right decision makers in your organization, how long should it take to make sure that people understand the features and functionality and be able to make a decision between five other priorities that are going on. So that's where a human being needs to be able to take what it is and then remove all the grunt work, but be able to do it. So those are one or two examples that I have seen in industry where people are able to take the AI, but also incorporate it into their day-to-day work.
Excellent. Thank you. I have one more question here, and then I want to pivot. Bhupesh, how do you if you can talk to me a little bit about how traditional assessments impact the inclusivity of education, particularly for students with diverse learning needs, and maybe even to add to that, how do you think AI can address issues, like bias, like to ensure fairness and equity in assessments?
So, if you see that Einstein has given a quote that if you try to really assess a tiger or a dolphin, I exactly don't remember, right? And with a single tool, it is extremely difficult to really do that. And that is what traditional assessment, traditional education has been doing, right? So there is no or limited personalization which is available, right? So there are students those who come with a diverse need, right? Now, traditional academia is moving towards finishing the curriculum, right, which is tick mark, not towards the mastery. Now, today, students come with a diverse need. They have different IQ, they have different speed. Somebody likes learning through theory, somebody likes learning through doing the projects, right? And hence, you also need to really have the different tools to evaluate them as well, right? Because at the end of the day, the idea is not to pass or fail or just to award the degree. The idea is to make them employable. Idea is to really give them some competency, which is composition of knowledge, skill, and behavior, so that they perform some task, right? It becomes much more important than in the era of AI, where AI is able to take most of the routine jobs, right? So when this kind of stuff is there, it becomes important that we personalize learning, right? And it is not practically possible with existing traditional stuff or rule-based learning management system, right? So I have been hearing personalization in various education conferences my entire life, right? But AI is something which has actually democratized the personalization at a scale, right? So here we are not talking about software, here we are talking about a digital brain. Here we are talking about the goddess Saraswati, which is the goddess of knowledge in India. Here we are talking about every human being on this planet has goddess Saraswati in their hand, and they can have the access. And I can really talk to goddess. I can really ask any kind of knowledge, which is typically information, which is slowly and gradually will be of low relevance. But now I have to really solve problems, right? And that's where really I can really have information access, formulate the hypothesis, create the solutions. So that way the learning will accelerate, right? And learning will be democratized and each and individual being will be able to really learn. And as an educator, I was guilty. And sometimes I used to really feel that I am the bottleneck, but there is not much we could really do. Although I have been developing education technology and doing a lot of innovation for last 20 years, I think this is the liberation time, right? You have internet, you have a mobile phone, and you have a digital brain. So every student, every learner, be it a 60-year-old or 80-year-old or a 12-year kid, right? They all have access to the information and knowledge, right? This is the best time, I think, in last 7,000 years of human written history.
Awesome. Thank you.
Eddie,
Go ahead.
if you don't mind, may
Please.
I add a couple of things from my perspective, right? Which is essentially like, look, AI tools like ChatGPT can produce grammatically correct and contextually relevant information, right? That no doubts about it. But in more circumstances, right, like they miss the content and context-based assessment, right? So essentially, what is captured by, I think Bhupesh was talking about, right, which is case studies, situational multiple choice, very context specific things, right? So that requires a deeper understanding of what's happening in the context if there are human beings involved, right? So you want to understand organizational culture, ethics. So you talked about, right, like people who are on a different scale, on a spectrum of learning abilities and capabilities, right? I'll add one more thing and then try to answer the question, which is access to information, right? Like a lot of these tools, some of them are freely available that you can self-use and learn. Others are under a paywall of some sort. So you have to spend some money, right? So there is an access issue. But nevertheless, what these tools are able to provide is what I think Bhupesh was talking about, which is instantaneous feedback, right? So if you are a learner who likes to learn something, then apply something, then learn something, then apply something. While I could be a person who wants to learn, but spend a whole lot of time just by doing, and both of our needs could be met by essentially you getting intermittent ability to run a model versus I get feedback on my execution, and both of us get. So these tools enable that, right? So that one. Second part, instantaneous feedback is one. The second part is it also creates a learning pathway, right, over a period of time, right? So that way somebody who's neurodivergent and has challenges in learning or doesn't learn in a rote environment, that is a place where essentially these tools are enabling it. I understand it's not uniformly accessible to everybody, but that's just the nature of when the shift happens, right? Over a period of time, these will become more and more incorporated into our learning pedagogies. These will get incorporated into like trainings available. But that's what I've seen, which is essentially these are enabler, but they also hide and mask a lot of stuff around shallow learnings, right? So if people are just learning and just using a tool and think that they learn, versus when you do something for a period of time, right, like then you are applying the concept. So that's what I've seen.
That's a great point. Thank you for that. I want to get more into we're touching on this already, but I do want to dive more into how AI can really address some of the challenges we talked about and make assessments into these active learning tools in education and in corporate training. But obviously, like what we're seeing is that AI is and can be a powerful tool in reshaping how we assess learning, right? But how can it actually help educators create meaningful real-world assessments? And I want to shift really quick and introduce my colleague and the head of customer experience at Assessify, Purvesh. He's a practitioner of AI in the assessment space, and I want him to show to sort of anchor the rest of this discussion, I want him to show Assessify so we can see an actual tool in action. And this is a tool that's being implemented and used by educational institutions around the world, as well as corporate institutions for their training. So I think it'd be really helpful for the rest of this discussion to pause and take a look at what Pravesh is going to share.
Thanks, Eddie. I hope I'm audible to everyone.
Yes.
Yes, Parvesh.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I again welcome you all esteemed speakers to this panel discussion. And we are having a very good discussion. And I will just quickly share my screen and show you the actual AI in action and the challenges that we are already discussing and few challenges that we have encountered in our R&D. So what are the solutions to those challenges? We'll just quickly show you on the screen. Yeah, I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes.
Great. So my name is Purvesh. I'm associated with Assessify as an head customer experience. And we'll go to the next. So this is a brief agenda that I'm going to cover in my presentation. So the pattern for my presentation today would be highlighting the challenges, what solution Assessify AI has for those challenges, and few sample slides with the how AI is integrated to solve those challenges. So this is my brief agenda where we'll highlight auto grading of assessment in a various kind of like digital, handwritten, oral, how the personalized expert feedback is provided by Assessify AI, that too on scale. The co-pilot mode where we'll demonstrate the ability for the teachers, for the faculties to change the Assessify AI feedback for the manual intervention. Then we have the last challenge, that is measuring learning outcome at the granular level. So quickly move to the next slide to start with the first challenge, that is the manual grading of assessments. So here what we see is like faculties are overloaded by doing this manual grading of all the assessment. So assessment, as I mentioned, like digital, handwritten, and oral. And manual grading is again time consuming, which delays to the student feedback. Okay, which also affects by providing the individual and timely feedback. So here, all these particular features, it is challenging and it affects the learning of the students. So what solution we have for that? So here we present the Assessify AI solution, that is the Assessify AI grading for assessments. So again, we have different tools to solve this problem. Like we have digital assessments, we have pen and paper mode of assessments where the students can write down their answers in a pen paper format. They can upload it and get the results of that particular assessment, where we cover subjects like maths, coding, we have essay type of assessment. And on the top of this, we also provide after the evaluation a personalized expert feedback. After all, we all are humans and we definitely learn by feedback. So for the students also, this part is very beneficial, where it's not only quickly evaluating their assessment, it is also providing a feedback just like the humans does. So we'll quickly move to the next slide and I will just show you how exactly we are doing that. So here I have picked up some sample examples like the handwritten assessment, coding assessment, oral assessment. So I'll just quickly show you one by one how exactly we are doing. So this example, as you can see on the screen, it's a maths subject that we have picked up. This is a question and this is a solution. So here, how really it works? As a student, I can write down the answer of this question in a pen and paper format. The platform, what it does, it transcribes this answer into the text format. Okay, you can see on the left side, and then it runs its auto evaluation. So the next part of the evaluation is that it will provide a grade, a marks, and at the same time it will also provide a remark as well. So you just imagine in the class of 50 students where you are providing this assessment to the students and students are writing their questions in a pen and paper format and resubmitting back to you, and the AI is working on your behalf, where it is grading the students assessment as well as it is providing a feedback or a remark just like the humans does. Isn't it cool? So here we have integrated the solution for handwritten and the other type of assessments as well. So I will just quickly show you another example. It's
So,
not like
so
math, but
Purvesh, I
yeah,
would like to just intervene and add. So,
sure, sure,
Virginia,
sir.
you spoke about that, yes, ChatGPT and Gemini has created a havoc, and they have actually buried down the traditional assessment, right? They put the nail on the graveyard. So every student is actually cheating through the ChatGPT. Now, most of the universities, University of Sydney, they have brought down this paper and pen method in classroom, and that we also did in our classroom. In my classroom, I say my students when I'm teaching statistics that close down your laptop, use paper and pen and write it, right? So writing on paper and pen, it also enhances your learning, and that is a separate topic we'll touch upon other time. But then it stops all kind of media access, which is mobile phone or a laptop or a chat GPT, right? And in a true sense, you are actually doing the assessment, which is fairiness, which Professor Saurav spoke about. If there is no fairiness, if there is no authenticity, the assessment is just a formality, right? And now, so 50 students, they really submit the statistics assignment, and then this really evaluate, give them the feedback. I also use that as formative assessment, which typically I don't use for the grading. So while I am actually teaching them some concept, right? So let's example linear regression, multiple linear regression. I give them some, taught them some idea, right? And I say, okay, solve this problem, upload it, and immediately it gives them the feedback, right? So rather than me going around every student and checking what they're doing, right? It really works pretty well. Right? So this has really lowered down my personal load, but at the same time, it has given my, say, clone to every student,
So
right?
I think,
And then they're able to relearn. And there's no laptop, nothing. They have to just scan through mobile phone and then upload.
which I think is great. Like, I
Which,
think this is fantastic. One question I would have though is like when we were talking about equity, bias, those types of things, the different levels of literacy. So does the program adjust for like the different grade levels, like what would be accessible and feedback for a first grader is going to be different for, an eighth grader. So does the program adjust for that language in order for the students to be able to access the feedback?
yeah, so clearly you can see that these kind of questions are K-12, right? These are not for higher education, which I typically teach in my class, right? So
Right.
there, the AI is there, which actually recommends, but you as a teacher also really comes and plays a handy role, right? And that's where the co-pilot mode is coming, right? Because human need to be at center. AI can't really replace the humans, right? Learning will not really happen. AI can't really get that kind of emotions which you as a teacher or I as a teacher can really bring.
Of course, of course.
And
Great, great.
Virginia,
Thank you
Thank
so
like
you.
much
I
for that.
live here in the States, right? Like the conversation I had with my kid's teacher was very similar to what you were talking about, right? Like COVID happened, everybody went onto Zoom, right? It became the learning investment by teachers deteriorated because they had to essentially learn new tools to deliver the message. And now that the kids are back in school, right? Like every kid has had a variety of learning needs. Some of them are being met by the school. So every teacher, very similar to yourselves, right? Like, and I have two kids, and one in elementary school, one in middle school, and the feedback I get from the principal and others is very similar and consistent with what you are observing, which is kids have needs. If this is a tool that helps me provide individualized feedback, taking into account if they are like neurodivergent or whatever it is, and be able to provide instantaneous support in order to help them, because as Bhupesh said, right, like he cannot be in 60 different places to address to 60 different kids needs, but every kid deserves a one-on-one interaction as much as possible. So that's what I think is what I'm seeing when I talk to my kids teachers as well.
Yes.
So I think
Well,
Olga has a very interesting question that what kind of verification have you done between the feedback that a teacher would give and what that which the AI gives? So Olga, like as a teacher, I do not rely completely on AI. Sometimes AI gives very generic feedback, right? And sometimes it gives far better feedback than I can really give. So then I have the option to change those feedbacks, right? I can really add something, right? And that's where I was talking about co-pilot, which Satya is also singing a song that yes, human has to be in center, right? You can't really offload everything to AI. Then what is the role of a teacher? Which is a big ethical issue also creates, right? I
Great,
hope it
great. Thank you
answers your
so
question.
much.
Yeah,
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 thank you
if
so
I
much
could
for
just
those
also add
inputs.
briefly, totally agree. The most powerful, the strength of AI is the such detailed feedback
right,
generated from SSFI and similar packages. It's very, very
right,
important for the student to learn. And but we need to be very mindful that I said it's like a library. It depends on what books you store in the library,
right,
how you make the algorithm, how do you generate the
right,
model, because
right.
the hallucination is quite
Yeah.
a phenomenon, quite an issue. And so I think what colleagues have said is extremely important.
Yeah,
Human oversight, start with human, end with human. This is absolutely important. Also, there's an ethical issue here. We need to be transparent. If I mark the coursework with the AI, I need to be transparent to my students. And students would say, well, we pay you all this money and you ask a machine
right,
to, to
yeah,
mark for us. So we need to be absolutely sure and say, this is
right,
actually I sign off. And
right.
then I will invite the students.
Yes,
If there's a discrepancy, if you don't agree, let's discuss why. Let's be critical of what the AI has said. And
yes.
so I think that process is very important.
Well,
No,
I
Professor
think
David, so very interesting. Sorry, Virginia, you were saying something. Hmm.
Sorry. Yeah, and I think like for me, it goes back to like what I was suggesting earlier is that this could be an amazing collaborative tool that the students use together to analyze their feedback, in a collaborative way, like even moderating each other's feedback responses, I think it would be an amazing learning exercise that they would be incorporating and critically thinking about what kind of a feedback did I get? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And then we're sharing the learning. We're getting student autonomy, right? And they're learning some independence and critical thinking with the assessment, with the AI being involved in the assessment.
Very true. So once, like one of my students came back to me, why did I get this mark, right? And he started contesting that he should have given the higher marks, right? So the good part is that yes, students can collaborate. At the same time, you can set up your own rubrics, and then it becomes much more transparent that AI has to really evaluate your assignment based on the rubric criteria, which is predetermined, which is preset, right? And any deviation, you as a faculty, you intervene and you change, right? You have the option to really do that. But still, you can't really completely go blind, as Professor David said. The student will contest that we are paying you money not to really evaluate through the AI. But what I have seen is what students are liking in a real environment at ages that yes, they don't have to really wait for a week, right? Which their seniors have seen. Now they get the feedback immediately, and the learning delta is improving drastically. So they don't mind, provided you actually tell them on what basis you have evaluated, and that's where the rubrics has been a long standing tool in academy. Okay, Koresh, over to you.
Sure, sure. Thank
Sorry
you
for
so much for
intervening.
all those, no problem, all those inputs. So I will like quickly move to the next set of example that I have. Again, it is a handwritten assessment, specifically for a pen and paper mode, where we have a theory kind of question and answer into this. Okay, so previously we saw the equation kind of example. Now this is a theory. So here again, the format is same. The student sees the question, they write the answer on the pen and paper format, simply upload to SSY platform. The platform will transcript that image to the text, and it will perform the auto grading. And again, it will provide the grade as well as it will provide a remark. Okay, so be it a equation type of question, be it a plain text kind of question, the platform is ready for it. Yeah, so great. So we'll move to the next set of example that we have is the code assessment. correct? So in code assessment, what we have, okay, so you can see this is the particular question. For that, we have provided a compiler for the student to write down their solution for this particular question. Okay, so student can simply write their solution here in the compiler. They can even check whether the code is running fine by inputting and outputting the data. Okay, and simply do the submissions. What here the platform will tell, it will quickly evaluate it and will provide the grade and the feedback the way it is doing for the pen and paper mode kind of thing, correct? And here on the top of that, we are also providing an inline code review, correct? So as a student, I'm not only getting the information where I need to improve, it is also mentioning me, okay, on this line, the syntax error was there. You are missing a space, you're missing a comma. So complete detailed evaluation of the code, the way the human does, it will provide in the inline code review. Okay, this is another kind of innovation I can say we have done, where we have put the step-by-step, line-by-line code review, which differentiate the SSY AI code evaluator with the other traditional platforms for code evaluation. Yes, so this was it. So next example I would just like to quickly see here is the oral assessment. Again, this is the achievement by SSY AI, I can say, wherein it empowers the students to record their responses in a voice format. Okay, let's have a look at this voice.
Activation functions add nonlinearity to neural networks, which allows them to understand complex patterns rather than just simple relationships. They're crucial for DNN and deep learning because they enable the network to learn and represent complicated data.
Yeah. So once the response is submitted to the platform, again, it starts with its evaluation process. In that, what it will do, it will transcript that audio to the text, and then it will start the evaluation part. The rest of the format is same. It will give you the mark. It will provide you the feedback as well. And we have this additional option here as well, wherein you can provide the model answer for the students to learn better, to go through this question for the next time. Again, this model answer part is optional, whether as a faculty you have the control whether you want to use or you want to ignore this particular feature. But as you can see, I have demonstrated 4 types of assessment where it enables the teachers to go through all digital pen and paper format coding assessment on a single platform. They no need to switch between other platforms for the evaluation and for these feedbacks. So we'll move to the next set of challenges that we have discussed, which is the co-pilot mode. Okay, again, this is not a challenge. This is a feature that we have recently launched or created in Assist5, where this particular mode will enable the educators to not only assess the evaluate, it will also provide the manual adjustment for the feedback provided by the Assist5 AI. Okay, so the feedback that you just saw in the previous slides, that feedback can be adjusted or edited by you as a teacher. So let's quickly see how really it works. Yeah, so again, for this particular example, I'm taking a code assessment only. The subject is Python. Okay, now you can see this is the question. I will just scroll down. You can see this was the solution submitted by the student. And now I get to this part. Okay, so I can see, okay, it has graded 5 marks and this was a feedback it has provided. Okay, so I really feel like I need to do some adjustments. So what I will do, I will go through the improvement section or to the explanation section. I can see these points. Okay, so third point is not that relevant, which is matching the solution that is provided. So what I will do, I will remove that point. Okay, and I can add my own pointer here. Okay, so that will give more clarity to the students, to me as well. Like, okay, so this AI is doing this part, so this AI evaluating this way. Okay, so this way it completely works in a co-pilot mode. To add one more point here, this complete platform works in 3 modes: the manual mode, the co-pilot mode, and the autopilot mode. So to highlight what these modes are, so in manual mode, you can ignore AI and you can completely evaluate these assessments manually without taking the help of AI. In the co-pilot mode, as you can see how it is happening on the screen, I can use it to do some manual adjustments for the AI generated feedback. And the last one is the autopilot mode, wherein I am really completely relying on AI mode to do this evaluation and to do the feedback part. So how you can use this in your academic assessments, basically. So to elaborate, so for the final term examination or the university examinations, you can definitely go for the manual mode, wherein you can completely do a manual check on the evaluation. For the midterm examination or unit test type of examination, you can definitely use the co-pilot mode, wherein you need to intervene in between and do the manual adjustment. But for the last part, that is the practice mode, where you take your day-to-day practice test to your students, you can definitely go for autopilot mode, where you can, by using this mode, you can be providing more number of assessments, as Mr. Deheria said in his talk, like the faculty can more focus on their new assessments or their slides for the next topic. So that way you can more look into that part instead of doing the evaluation of the assessments. So here it was the challenge that we have solved, that is the co-pilot mode. So let's move to the next part here. Yeah, again, this is the last challenge I would like to demonstrate, is the measuring the learning outcome at the granular level. So what exactly we are doing here? We are at SS5 not only develop, we also measure the cognitive capabilities for the complex problems, as well as how the critical thinking has been done. Okay, and the solution for this is like we enable the educators and trainers to basically understand this by the reports that we generate, whether the cognitive skill was tested and was achieved and developed in the students. So let us quickly, I would like to show you a short video to make you understand how exactly we are doing this, how exactly the platform is measuring the learning outcome on a granular level. So please have a look at this video and then we can discuss further.
Presenting you Assessvi, the world's first AI-powered auto-learning outcome measurement system. Let's look at measurement of learning outcome. A singular outcome like the grade or score of 62 out of 100 is an abstract number, offering no insight into a candidate's capabilities at a granular level. Here is Assessvi AI providing you with deeper level insights into proficiency across the 6 cognitive knowledge and skill levels defined by Bloom's taxonomy. For instance, in this assessment, a candidate performed very well in recall or knowledge, and understanding but poorly on higher cognitive capabilities like application of knowledge, ability to analyze, evaluate, and create. Now you can take action based on this insight. Isn't this a better approach than relying on a singular outcome matrix, such as a simple score? Connect with our team.
Yes, so this video is so explanatory. I believe you must have got some idea of what exactly we are doing here. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, this was the report that was demonstrated in the video. So this report gives you the detailed and granular feedback for the learning intervention, which is like, it refers to providing a specific and precise insights into students' performance. So it helps basically to identify the areas where the improvements is required. And here for this particular example, we are using a Bloom's taxonomy framework. You can use your own framework as well on your own course learning outcomes as well. But here we are using Bloom's taxonomy. Okay. And in this report, it helps to basically measure the cognitive level or the cognitive capabilities, I must say, of the candidates, and provides what we can say, the provides a feedback that breaks down the grades that you just saw, and the student grade and the performance across different cognitive levels that you can just see on the screen. That is remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and finally creating. So it gives you a complete picture, like where the improvement is required, how the students are performing on this each level of cognitive biasness.
So, Professor David and Virginia, you will agree with me that when Professor Bloom has developed this taxonomy in 1956, the West has been trying to really deploy it for last 60, 70 years, after 70s, but failed miserably to actually measure the learning outcome. Right? And essentially, that tagging each question, because you have to tag each question that what level of cognitive capability is actually measuring. It is at a scale is extremely difficult or rather impossible, right? So measuring learning outcome, which is part of Washington Accord, India has also assigned as a EMBA or ABET or EC, it has always been, say, at a very superficial level. We are not really actually going deeper and measuring the learning outcome. Now, it has become very important in the era of AI that we need to really check that what kind of questions we are asking, what kind of assignments we are giving. Mm. And I have seen that most of the universities and most academic institutions, not really sure about the K-12, but they typically ask questions which only evaluate the lower level cognitive capability, and that challenge we have discussed. Now, this actually gives you a complete postmortem report that what kind of questions and assignment is there in the system, right? And is the student is actually moving upward or not, right? And that's fantastic tool that you can really use at a scale, and that we have been using excessively, right? Because teaching and training faculty members that how to really apply Bloom's taxonomy or course learning outcome at a granular level is not possible. It's not even difficult, it's impossible. And I have not seen any university across the world who can really claim that yes, they have done uh, at a scale. 2, 3, 10 questions, 20 questions is easy, but not at a scale. And this will really help to develop higher cognitive capability, which we as a academia has failed in a mass scale. I'm not talking about top institutions, because top institutions, you have good faculty, you have a good students, so automatically you give higher cognitive capability assignments. But what about the masses? What about the 99%? What about the 95% masses?
I mean, I agree that because my thought was like, wow, I would like to be able to see, because then you could look across like how many students like are not getting those higher levels, right? The higher level Bloom's taxonomy, and then we can sit there and make those comparisons with the teachers and say, is it the question or is it the student? Is it it's a great tool. As we have said, feedback is important. It's important for both the teacher and for the student and for the institution to look at our teaching practices and what we're doing and how we're doing it. So, I mean, I see benefits in so many ways.
Yes, I agree. Learning outcome is the most important. How to reach that learning outcome now with the AI, with all the different technologies, there are a variety of ways. And this assessment process is a very important one to reach that learning outcome, those learning outcomes. And for AI, I think the most, as I mentioned earlier, is the individualized approach, make that individualized approach possible. Regina just alluded to. And if you have 100 students, only 80 got the first class very good, the other ones failed. That's no good. That means we are educated, we did not do a good job. There's an equity issue here, not equality, it's an equity issue here. How do we help the students who can benefit from our knowledge, from the technology, everything? So therefore, the AI can base on the students' data and the background, what they have learned before, the attendance, and tailor-make a individualized learning plan for that particular student. Obviously, there's a data protection issue, and all the commercial packages are not necessarily one size fits all. But AI has a capability that you can actually modify that to suit a particular kind of model, a particular situation, to enable more students, if not 100%, that can learn in can be successful. So I think that is the power, but also the serving, serving the staff. Even if we have increased the many staff can then save some time using the AI to improve the efficiency, and then save that time to individually mentor the students, who need more help. Again, equity issue. So I think this is a good demonstration of what AI's power can actually help in the modern society. Help students from different backgrounds. So thank you. Yeah, I have lots to say, but I stop there.
So we run a lot of corporate programs, and the corporate programs Let's example, there is a AI company and they have actually asked us to train their 50 employees, new joinees on machine learning and AI. And we as an institution, we charge always premium, and that is where they always ask the question about the ROI, right? And they want to actually see that what kind of competency they have developed. So don't tell me that they have learned scraping, or they don't tell me they know the Python, but tell me what they can really do. That is the most important thing, right? And this is actually able to really help us to provide evidence based on the large sample of the assessment without increasing the cost, without overburdening our faculty members. A very good point, Dr. David.
Great, great. So we'll move to the next part. So as you can see, this report, it is providing you the results for a cohort, basically cohort of the 50 students, correct? Example. So we'll see the next slides how we are breaking down this results for the individual student level and how we are providing the detailed report for that. So again, this is the challenge wherein a learning outcome. Now you can see it is providing you the details, correct? But now it should give you the actionable insights as well, wherein how you can see and check like on individual students what action specifically you need to take. So let me move to the next slide. Yeah, so this is basically a learning outcome attainment report, wherein you can see on the left side it shows the student name, and on the top it is showing the tool that was used to assess the student. That can be multiple choice question, subjective assessment, assignment, and coding assessment, or it can be code any other type of assessment. So here exactly it is showing you how each student has performed for each course outcome that you have provided into the system. And to the next part of it, I will just quickly shift. Here on the right side, I'll just quickly highlight here. So here you can see the overall result of the students basically. So you can see the percentage that are marked with green color. It clearly states that the attainment was achieved, and percentage with the green with the red color, it is showing you it is not achieved. Okay, so you can take a call on this data. Okay, so for CLO1, CLO2, student 1, Apurvesh has done a good achievement, but for the rest of the CLOs it is not that great. So I can go back to the students, or I can go back to my desk. I can do a re-revision for the questions that I've used for these CLOs, or I can do take a call basically on this specifically. And if you see on the bottom specifically, at whole it is telling you, okay, so the course out attainment for the whole cohort is 0, it is not achieved. Okay, and specifically you can go back and you can take a call on this. Yeah, so let's quickly move to the next part. Yeah, okay, so it is again the continuation of the measuring learning outcome at the granular level. Okay, so this is the third part basically, wherein, and okay, so you have seen the cognitive capabilities of the students. Now what next? Okay, we are going one step ahead and we are showing you the result of your students for each topic that was covered basically. Again, this is a big achievement to see the results topic wise. Okay, and the next part is that it is also providing some recommendations to teachers and to students as well. So let's quickly see in the next slides how it is doing. Yeah, so this is a report, this is the continuation of the previous report, where you can see the student name on the left, and on the top this is the topic name basically. Okay, and for the student, how they have performed, what grades they have got for each topic. Okay, so initially you saw a cohort wise result. Okay, you can take a call. Now you're seeing a topic wise. Okay, so this topic is hampering, so I need to go back for this topic and do some revision for my students, get a new set of questions for that, and then go ahead. It is also showing you the proficiency level of the achievement that the students has got. Next part of the report is that it is providing a set of recommendations, okay, to the teachers and to students as well. Okay, so this was your, and again, these whole recommendations are not static. This is completely dynamic, and it generates on the basis of the grades, the proficiency level that you have achieved. On that basis, it will create the recommendations for you, correct? So that's it from my side, everyone. So just to conclude, I would like to say We have seen the auto grading that is definitely helpful for the teachers to use it for their day-to-day assessment they do. Then we have seen how the platform is providing the feedback after the evaluation is done. The third part that we discuss is the co-pilot mode that empowers the faculties or teachers to do some manual modifications if they're not satisfied with the AI. And finally, how you can measure the learning outcome at a granular level. And all these reports will definitely help you to get into it. Thank you so much. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Pravesh.
Pravesh.
Thank
That was
you.
great. So, luckily we were able to have a discussion during that, and we addressed a lot of the, the question of how AI can address those challenges and make assessments into active learning tools. But I would love to, ask a couple more questions in the time we have left. Dr. Mehta, based on what we just saw with Assessify, how do you think AI can help sort of resurrect traditional assessments and make them more valuable as active learning tools? Rather than just mechanisms for evaluation.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this assessment tool, it is a wonderful, and we get like very detailed analysis of every learner's progress path, and it is not just useful for a student but also for faculty member and administrator, because we have to actually work on many accreditation parts. So it's very helpful for us that to understand that how we are progressing in our program and our learning path. And so this is wonderful. And the best part is that I can see it's giving multiple options, not just limited to like a writing, but also in a audio tone, and then various different options. And it does many processes in an automated way. So that's a very useful. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. In Virginia, I saw when Pravesh was showing the oral assessment piece, he mentioned that oral assessment is a very powerful piece for students of different abilities. Would you mind just speaking to that?
I mean, we have students that have different abilities or have different challenges, and the ability to, I mean, I'm gonna speak of like a personal experience of students with dyslexia, in particular, and being able to differentiate their learning and being able to have them give that oral, because they struggle with the writing, they struggle with giving that kind of writing piece. And I've had students that their vocabulary and their cognitive abilities way surpass what they're putting in writing, and that's because of dyslexia. Now, as an educator, I want to be looking at my students' cognitive ability. I want to be helping my students develop the tools for all their different abilities to progress them along. But I want to be assessing my students' cognitive ability. I want to know what their knowledge is. And so having this type of a oral assessment allows me to fully capture that in a way that I wouldn't be able to do that with 30 students in the classroom. It would be really impossible for me to take that time to sit there and listen to my student, maybe one-on-one, so I think it's an amazing tool for us to be able to look at it. And not only that, but also students that struggle with literacy, being able to hear a student read out loud. How fluent is the reader? When I'm talking about my lower age kids, being able to see that, to test their fluency. I think it's, anything that we can do to kind of level that playing field when it comes to different abilities is so important for us as educators and for the students.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Let me wrap up with this sort of final question here. And I'm going to call on someone, but then I would encourage the panelists to chime in if anyone has anything to add to that. The question is, how do you envision assessments evolving over the next decade with AI at the forefront? Considering what we just saw with Assessify, and where do we see this going in 10 years from now? I'm gonna call on Professor Tom.
Okay, okay. Well, I think it's no exaggeration to say it's a revolution in education, and but it's for good things in the right direction. It will help improve the efficiency, narrow the productivity gap, and make learning interactive, almost like a partnership. Virginia mentioned earlier, alluded to that we should involve the students in setting up the assessment. And what they have learned, they have learned that what do you think is the best to assess? We can then ask the generative AI to answer, and then we can then critically, go through that. And that is a good learning process as well, because learning today is much easier in many ways than my generation, 20, 30 years ago, because we have to memorize everything, not enough kind of good facilities or learning, not even, good computers those days. But now all the learners have everything at their fingertips. So AI is a facilitator. I would think every student should have a personal AI learning assistant, not only academically, but also to say, look, in a university, some of my students, they haven't attended for 3 weeks. If that data is put into the personal data to that profile of that student, I would say, well, why did you not attend? If sometimes a machine talk to a student in that sense is almost think as more objective, so generally, I think instead of I would change this question slightly. Is a traditional assessment dead? And I think obviously it's very important to realize that. I think how do we utilize AI, utilize technology to make assessment not only a successful in meeting the traditional purpose of assessment, but also use it as a powerful learning process, as a powerful learning tool, particularly for everyone's purpose. Because sometimes, my staff don't say anymore. Sometimes you say, oh, those students are difficult to teach. There are no such thing as unteachable or difficult to teach students. We need to spend more time. Utilizing AI, like this example, is extremely powerful because you can save some time for staff. So staff, we don't have to worry about, okay, AI is going to take our job. Absolutely not. We are going to be more, in the end, I keep saying, start with human, end with human. Human oversight is extremely important. So I think we are all live in the exciting period of time, and we need to really do everything we can to take full advantage of AI. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Like, I think the thing that makes me so excited about it is the dynamic learning experience. Being able to have that, when we talk about grouping, and we talk like when I do interviews, we're talking the teacher will always come in and they'll say, well, I put them in 3 groups. I put them in higher ability, lower ability, and on level, right? What are we basing that on? We're basing that on these traditional assessments. We're basing that on these standardized tests, right? What if instead we're grouping our students, or we're having these learning experiences based on their understanding of learning objectives, and we're progressing them based on these learning objectives, and we're able to dynamically group them, and we're able to dynamically address their needs because of this feedback and because of what's provided to us through AI. It's so much more personalized, individualized, and it helps each of those students progress. And that's what I'm excited for. I'm excited for that dynamic aspect of being able to address each individual student's needs when it comes to those different learning outcomes, and not just looking at it as like, let me put them into this group or this group based on a standardized test.
Well said, Virginia. Thank you. And I think that covers pretty much everything. And I really think that, as a conclusion here, we can say that it's pretty clear that the landscape of learning evaluation is at a pivotal moment, especially with these AI tools. So while traditional assessments have served as the cornerstone in education, the rise of AI presents both challenges and transformative opportunities. So platforms like Assessify, with those platforms, we're witnessing the evolution of assessments into now learning tools that not only measure learning, but actively foster the growth, creativity, real-world problem solving. And I want to thank our incredible panelists for sharing their insights and perspectives, and all of you for joining us and engaging in this conversation. So let's take these ideas forward to rethink, reimagine, and reshape assessments in the age of AI. And if you'd like to learn more or connect with us after the session, please feel free to reach out. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie, for such a
Thank you.
wonderful moderation.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Eddie, I have a small announcement to make. Hello, everyone. My name is Anita. So I have given a link in the chat box, and thank you, everyone, for that wonderful discussion, enlightening us on traditional assessment and also the solution what is offered by SSY to overcome those solutions. I mean, those challenges. So we have come up with an educators empowerment form here. I've given the link. I'll request all the educators, all the academicians to fill up the form and see the magic by itself by using the tool. So our team would be in touch once we receive the information, and we can customize the requirement of yours one-on-one. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anita.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
Professor David. Thank you, Varshitya. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Eddie, it was wonderful moderation. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you, Prash. Bye.
Introducing world's first AI-powered auto-grading of descriptive and coding assessments by Assessify AI. Assessify AI evaluates answers in descriptive, subjective, scenario-based, or coding assessments and provides A scores. But it doesn't stop there. It goes further by offering feedback that explains why it assigns certain marks and identifies areas for improvement. Assessify is transforming assessments into effective learning tools because, as we all know, human beings learn